This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
It's not bad. It's not something that's just unfortunate or sad. It's a nightmare, a horror, a devastating disaster, life without a Beis HaMikdash. It's our worst nightmare. But we're used to it already. We go on with our daily lives. We go through the motions. We worry about making a living, raising a family. We've become accustomed to a world without a Beis HaMikdash. But let's get a little reality check. Life without a Beis HaMikdash is death. We say it every Shabbos. We said it today. We say to God, Rachem al Tzion, please have mercy on Yerushalayim, ki hi beis chayenu. Because it's our life. That's what we're saying. Yerushalayim, the Beis HaMikdash, it's our lifeblood, and without the Beis HaMikdash, it's death. When the wicked Rasha Titus entered the Beis HaMikdash, we're going to say in Kinnot Tezayin, Zechar asher asa tsar b'fnim, how he enters the Beis HaMikdash, and he goes into the Kodesh HaKdashim, and he slashes the paroiches, the holy curtain that stood before the Arayin, and the Gemara tells us in Gittin, that when Titus slashes the paroiches, blood gushes forth from the paroiches to the point that Titus had thought he had slain Kiviyachal HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Asks Rabbi Shiur, the Rosh Hashiva of Slobodka, why did Hashem perform this miracle to have blood gush forth from the paroiches just to trick Titus into thinking that he had slain the Rebbeinu Shalom? What lesson was Hashem teaching Klal Yisrael? Says Rabbi Shiur, Hashem was teaching Klal Yisrael a very important principle, that the Beis HaMikdash is the life force of Klal Yisrael. It is the life force of the world. It is Beis Chayenu. The Beis HaMikdash was the vehicle through which all blessing descended to this world. The Medrash tells us that if the Goyim would have only known how much they personally benefited from the Beis HaMikdash, they never would have destroyed it. The blood gushing forth from the paroiches indicated that the world had just suffered a fatal blow to the heart. The world is now suffering a state of cardiac arrest. So it's an absolute nightmare, a disaster of the most epic proportions. If we were to think about individuals who have died horrific, torturous, grotesque deaths, if we would make a list of the all-time most torturous deaths, Yoshiyahu HaMelech would have to rank up there at the top of the list. The righteous Yoshiyahu, as he goes to war against Paro Necho, the king of Egypt, and we will say in the Kinnot that the archers of Paro pierced the holy body of Yoshiyahu in 300 locations, to the point where the Kinnot says, Samuha kimatara lechitzim. They made him target practice. They pierced his body like a target. He died a grotesque, torturous, unbearable death, to the point that Chazal say that every revius of blood that poured forth from the limbs of Yoshiyahu, the Navi Yirmiyah went and buried it. A very painfully disturbing death, especially in the light of the fact that Hashem promised Yoshiyahu that he would die peacefully. The pasuk says in Melachim, Lachein ani osifcha al avosecha. God tells Yoshiyahu, I will gather you to your fathers, v'ne'asafta k'furasecha b'shalom, and you will die in peace. This is peace, being pierced with 300 arrows, every limb in his body gushing forth blood in a most torturous, grotesque way. Rabbi, are we missing something? This is peace. Answers the Gemara in Moed Katan on Daf Chav Ches. He died in peace. Shalei Charav Beis HaMikdash b'yamav. Yoshiyahu died in peace because he did not have to see the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Explains Rav David Leibowitz, Zeichat Tzadik Livracha. The destruction of the Beis HaMikdash is such a nightmare, such a horror, such a disaster, that for Yoshiyahu to be tortured to death, it was paradise, compared to having to see the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. If only we could lay our feet on the floor of the Beis HaMikdash. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz writes in the Yaros Devash, quoting Yosef ben Gurion, that one who merely placed their feet on the floor of the Beis HaMikdash, the tiles of the Beis HaMikdash would imbue the Jew with a source of Chachma and Ruach HaKodesh. Just standing on the floor of the Beis HaMikdash, it would ennoble your mind. It would ennoble your soul. That is why when one entered the Beis HaMikdash, he had to remove his shoes so that the holy tiles would be able to imbue the Jew with wisdom without any separation. If we could only spend one moment in the Beis HaMikdash, our lives would have been changed forever. The Medrash tells us that before the Goyim would go onto the Har HaBayis, they were so afraid, they were so scared, so what they did was they wanted to run a trial run. So they sent a Jewish trader by the name of Yosef Meshisa to go into the Beis HaMikdash. They would see what would happen to this guy, and if he would emerge unscathed, the Goyim would then follow. And they tell Yosef Meshisa, look, go in, take whatever you want. You could take the most valuable items. Just go in, take whatever you like. So Yosef Meshisa goes in, and of course he takes the most valuable item in the Beis HaMikdash. He takes the menorah, the glorious menorah. And as he's coming out with the menorah, the Goyim take a look at the menorah and they said, you know what? Not the menorah. The menorah does not belong to a commoner. The menorah belongs to the king. Just go in one more time. Take whatever you want. Yosef Meshisa says, one more time? No, I can't go in one more time. Why not? We'll forgo your taxes for 3 years. No, can't go in. We will kill you if you don't go in. Yosef Meshisa said, it's enough that I've angered my Creator once. I should anger him a second time. So they took the body of Yosef Meshisa. They lay him down on the carpenter's bench, and they took an axe, and they hacked away at the body of Yosef Meshisa. And Yosef Meshisa cried out, Vai! Oi! Oi! Shehechasti l'bayri, woe to me that I've angered my Creator. What happened to this man? A moment ago, he was willing to defile the holiest spot on earth. And all of a sudden now, he's willing to be tortured to death for the sake of God. What changed? What happened? Says Rav Yosef Shlomo Kahaneman, the Rosh Hashiva of Panovich. What changed was he entered the Beis HaMikdash. And the biggest Russia cannot leave the Beis HaMikdash without his life being changed forever. A moment ago, he was a Rasha Merusha, he was a traitor to our people. But merely stepping foot on the holy tiles of the Beis HaMikdash, as Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz explained, was enough to imbue the worst Jew with the highest levels of Chachma and Ruach HaKodesh. One moment in the Beis HaMikdash was a life-changing, life-altering experience. And that is why we cry. The loss of our home that was the source of all of our physical blessing, all of our spiritual blessing. From this great house emanated everything good we had. And B'avonoseinu Harabim, we've lost it. Every Yom Tif has its own tangible means, tangible mitzvah, to express the essence of the Yom Tif. Rosh Hashanah has a shofar. Sukkot has a daled minim. Pesach has matzah. What do we have on Tisha B'Av? On Tisha B'Av, the mitzvah of Tisha B'Av is tears, demise. Rashi tells us in Masechta Rosh Hashanah and Daf Lamed that when Mashiach comes, we will not build the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash will descend from Shamayim, Meshuchlal Ubanoi, completely built. So who's going to build it? And with what will it be built? Says Chasam Sofer in the Drashas Chasam Sofer, the Bayis Hashlishi is not built out of stone. It's not built out of marble. It's not built out of wood. The third Beis HaMikdash is built out of the tears, the tsar, the Kinnot, the lamentations of the Jewish people. The tears of Klal Yisrael are the building blocks of the third Beis HaMikdash. Throughout the millennia, many Jewish tears have been shed. And the tears have been flowing and flowing. Rabbi said we're almost there. Our poor people have certainly already put up most of the third Beis HaMikdash. Perhaps then our avodah on Tisha B'Av is just to complete a few missing tiers, just one or two more bricks. The Gemara tells us in Masechta Brachos something very frightening. The Gemara tells us in Masechta Brachos and Daf Lamed Beis Amud Beis, V'yamar Rabbi Elazar, Miyayim shecharav Beis Hamikdash ninalu sharei tefillah. From the day that Beis Hamikdash has been destroyed, the gates of tefillah have been locked. However, says the Gemara, Afal pi sharei tefillah ninalu, although the gates of tefillah have been locked, sharei dima lo ninalu, the gates of tears are never locked. Perhaps then, if we could muster out just one tear, just one sincere tear, and show the Ribono Shel Olam that the loss of the Beis Hamikdash means something to us, and it hurts us. God willing, that tear will go straight up to the Ribono Shel Olam through the Sharei Demai Shalai Ninalu, and it will be Ma'orer Avinu Shema Shamayim to bring the Geula Shalema and turn our nightmare into a dream come true. We should be Zaycha to see the Binyan Beis Hamikdash. Sechazenu Eineinu B'Shuvcha Tzion Barachamim Imher V'Yameinu Amen. According to Minhag Ashkenaz, there are 45 kinnos that are part of the liturgy of the Tisha B'Av service. Many of these kinnos are difficult to understand because of the format, because of the structure, because of the language. And the Torah tells us in Siman Tav Kuf Nun Tes that when it comes to the recitation of the kinnos, the whole congregation needs to understand them. The men, the women, and we have to make sure that even the young boys understand them. And therefore, for the sake of a greater understanding of the kinnos, and to enhance the meaning of our Tisha B'Av service, we're going to be selecting specific kinnos to say, to recite, to focus on, paying special attention to the historical background, and to some of the key phrases in the kinnos. But we should point out, though, that even if we don't understand the full meaning of the kinnos, the words themselves carry tremendous kedusha. Perhaps the most well-known of all the Paitanim, the most well-known of all the authors of the kinnos was Rabbi Elazar HaKalir, who's universally accepted as the father of the Paitanim. Rabbi Elazar HaKalir is the author of the first 15 kinnos that we will say this morning, as well as many of the other tefillos that we say throughout the year. Says the Shiboilei Haleket, quoted by the Magen Avram, that he writes that he heard from his father that when Rabbi Elazar HaKalir composed the piyut about the heavenly angels, a fire descended from Shamayim and encircled Rabbi Elazar HaKalir. Incredibly, the Ma'ari Hertz writes that when Rabbi Elazar HaKalir wanted to compose his piyutim, he would say the name of God. He would ascend to the heavens, and he would speak to the Malachim. And he asked the angel Michael how to praise Hashem. How do the angels praise Hashem? And the Malach Michael taught the Kalir that the Malachim praise Hashem in the order of the Aleph Beis. At which point Rabbi Elazar HaKalir learned the format of the piyutim that we will say this morning. While Rabbi Elazar HaKalir was certainly an awesome personality, there's a great degree of uncertainty regarding exactly who was Rabbi Elazar HaKalir. Tosfos in Masechta Chagiga and Daf Yud Gimel identifies him as none other than Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, Rabbi Elazar the son of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. While the Shas Tshuvas Harashba in Siman Tav Samach Tes identifies him as the great Tana Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. In any event, the kinnos were written by great sages, and their words carry very important significance.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.